Good evening. My name is Erica Underwood, and welcome to the North College Hills City Council Rules and Public Policy Meeting. Does everyone have a copy of our agenda? Okay, so first up is Ms. Clear with the proposed rules for council chambers, and you will note that she took great pains to put at the top of all of these draft, do not distribute, do not distribute, do not distribute. So please, please, please don't post or distribute something that says North Pole City Council Chambers use policy. So, Ms. Clear, take it away.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? I feel like this microphone is rather short. Okay. All right. So one-ish month ago, I was in a meeting, and we were talking about potentially using council chambers for outside functions or for uses other than official meetings. And I was asked to put together a draft of policy or procedures or how we would go about doing that, which I did, and I sent to Ms. Underwood two different documents, which you should have electronically, but one is a draft of the general facility use policy, which would be the overall governing document for use of the facility, and then the second document is a reservation agreement. So that is if anyone were to apply or submit a request to use the facility, they would then be required to sign this agreement in order to, and among other things, in order to secure the space, just so they understand. And these documents are, they're long, they're involved because this is a public facility and it is a legal agreement. So I was looking at a few examples online. I also was drawing from my previous experience, which was a long, long time ago, but I used to be the conference and event planner at the Cintas Center for weddings, meetings, seminars. So just some of the gotchas that I already know, sometimes happen with these kinds of things. I tried to incorporate. So I know you guys have had these for like 5 minutes, but I'm sure I've already seen in looking at them again that there's some minor like inconsistencies with how I worded some things that I'll clean up. But I want you, this is basically just to provide a basis. I would prefer that there was some ordinance or resolution or something. I believe Ms. Zorb mentioned in a previous meeting that there is an existing policy that restricts use of the space that would need to be amended or revisited in order to even put anything like this in place. So after you guys have had time to look this over and review it, I would very much like it if Mr. Dieters could review it and then see if there's any edits. I do not get emotionally attached to this sort of thing, so if there's anything that is materially incorrect or out of whack or no, we absolutely cannot do that, by all means let me know. If I'm missing something, let me know. If I have a parentheses in the wrong place, let me know. So, but yeah, and the idea, this is specific to this building. So where my head was at was I was actually thinking to create a template that could be used for really any city-owned facility that we may want to make available for use by an outside group. So that could be a park rental. It could be 10, 15 years from now, space inside of a city-owned, recreation center or anything like that, that we would make space available. So this idea is to create a template that is customizable for whichever facility it is that we're deciding to allow outside groups to use. So there's some things that are specific to this building that would obviously be changed if it was a park, versus, this particular room. So I don't expect like in-depth questions right this minute because you haven't really had a chance to look through it that hard. But if you do have any questions, please let me know.
I can tell you I did glance at this. I have not gotten all the way through it. But I did notice somewhere, and I can't even find it now, I was reading it online, I saw something about a $25 refundable charge.
Yeah, that's on the North Pole City Council. That
Okay,
document.
wherever it is.
There's a couple of
just-
$25 in there, and that's basically just stubbed in there as a placeholder.
So I'm not disputing the $25, I'm disputing the amount. If it's a deposit, I feel like it should be a higher deposit in the event something does get wrecked. So we have more leverage to retain the money to get whatever it is repaired.
Okay, yeah, and so you're talking about the cleaning and damage deposit then? That would be refundable if the room looks exactly like this after their
Yes.
function is complete.
Yep.
There's no issues, no damage, then that would be refundable. If there is issues, damage, then we would retain that fee. Okay, yeah, like I said, thank you. Those amounts are whatever you guys, by virtue of legislation or however that works, would set these fees. I would suggest
That
that we
is
don't.
just my
We don't
opinion. I don't
hard
know
code those fees,
how
so we don't
anyone
have to
else
keep
feels about
revising
that.
the ordinance every time, but if there's like a schedule of fees that is approved every year or something like that, that I think, I would suggest we go with that model, rather than having to revisit the entire ordinance and rewrite the whole thing every single time. But yes, those fees are mostly placeholder kind of things. The one fee that is not refundable is application processing fee, and that's because it takes time to look through these things, get it all together. Do we need counsel, to give a blessing? I've got to get all that, whoever's responsible for this process is going to have to, do some work, to make sure that this is an appropriate event for our facility. And of course, I put in there the 3-day withdrawal process because I believe that's Ohio state law. Anytime you have anything like that, you're allowed to rescind or withdraw within 3 business days. So I think I have that adequately captured in there as well. But yeah, any of those dollar figures you see in there are completely just placeholder kind of things.
I also recall seeing something that stated the city clerk would be the one that would, and I don't know, I'm lost on this one. I was reading it on my phone.
There was
But
one example city that might have had their city clerk manage this function.
Yeah, I don't know that we have an individual with that title.
We do not.
So
No,
that's what I'm
I
saying.
think
I mean, we have a council clerk and we have a city secretary, I think. I don't even know what they're called. That. So things like that would have to be.
Yeah, just in anything that is like a North College Hill version of the agreement. Just like I said, I'm sure I have some things, there's some inconsistencies just because I stared at this for so long that the words started running together.
Yep.
But yeah, so there were a couple of example municipalities that I drew from that I may not have completely cleaned out, whatever that is they title their staff members versus how our staff members are, their roles and titles. The one was from North Pole, Alaska, which I just thought was a fun name. I like their application. It's very simple and to the point, just to request the space in the first place. And then I drew off of the city of Bryan, Texas, for the actual policy and event agreement itself. I really like how Bryan, Texas, if you want to benchmark for amazing facilities management, they have a very good process on their website. I'm just going to throw that out there. And it's Bryan with a Y, Texas.
So, sorry, just so I can make sure the viewers at home hear me. Did you say you're gonna kind of go in and make those changes, or do you want us to kind of point out those changes? What do you want us to do?
I thought she said she wanted Dieters to look at it.
I did want Dieters to look at it. I want, if there's people on this committee who want to look through it and proofread,
Sure.
I would very much appreciate that. It makes me nervous to come up with 13-page documents that I'm the only one who looked at.
Do you want us to email you those when we notice them?
Yes, that would be good. Perfect. That's fine. If you even want to give me a scribbled up copy and stick it in on my desk, that would work too.
Madam Chair. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
this for anybody who wants to use the facility or any organization?
I believe so. I think, well, Ms. Claire, can you answer that?
Yes, this policy is mostly designed to govern examples of, let's say, Chase Bank wants to come in and do a finance seminar for free for the community, then this policy would apply. Exceptions obviously are city business, because we have primary use of the space anyway. I would leave it up to the committee to decide or council to decide if this city business extends to the Board of Education, because that is official business. The only issue would be if there's any scheduling conflicts. We would need to make sure there's a process to deal with that. But I would think that there's a line drawn between things that are official city business and things which are any outside group that would want to use the space.
I would just say they do allow us to use their signboard for our events. So, if that's clearly your decision.
I personally think, there's if there's this application process and somebody's going through the effort of doing the application and signing the policy agreement and paying the fees and putting down a deposit, and then somebody in administration's going through and checking off all these boxes, that's all done. I think, let them use it. That's my personal opinion. But that's kind of how I'm thinking about this.
Are you
So-
saying they should do the application?
At the very least, the application, just so we have, it's just been my experience.
Just so I'm clear, I was not saying that anybody should not do the application. Just so we're clear, that's not what I was saying.
It just creates a standardized method of requesting the space, yeah.
Of course.
And I also want to clarify for anybody in TV land that another line is drawn at social events. No social events. This is an official, this is a meeting space.
That's,
I think we can have outside groups come in if it's a public benefit, or if it's a bona fide charity. Nobody's going to be requesting this space to, get household items for a friend whose house burned down. That would not be an appropriate use of the space. But hypothetically, if a scout troop would ask, hey, can we set up in the parking lot, for our annual product sale, that would be something we would review. Because it is a bona fide charity, it does provide a public benefit. So those kinds of things I've tried to capture in this document as drawing a line.
That's what I was going to ask. Where in this document have you kind of outlined that? Sorry. That's a very specific question. Sorry.
I believe in the policy document,
It's
not the
under
one that looks like a
6.
contract. It's a clause,
Prohibited
section
use.
5 and section 6. Section 5 is allowable activities. Section 6 is prohibited activities.
I think the main point that I want to make sure that we've circled the wagons on is when this is sent to the law director, I want to make sure that we have our ducks in a row. If in the event we should decline someone use, so that we're not slammed for who knows what.
Right. Is there something in here about no to religious organizations, or is there anything
If they are a
about that?
501c3, I do not believe we are permitted to discriminate based on the nature of their activity.
Okay.
I did look at that as well, because I know that there's some. Yeah, so I believe as long as the provisions are applied equally and fairly, to any organization that meets our criteria as far as use of the space, then an acceptable use of the space, then that would be allowable. We make no statements implied or anything that the city in any way endorses or authorizes their activities. we're just providing carpet. So that's,
Indoor yeah.
yes. So that's
And
kind of,
heat
I
and
think that's in here somewhere too. I think clause 9 or 10 or
not there
something
in
like
this
that. So, but yeah, just non-discrimination clause is in there, a non-endorsement clause is in there. What I do need is an arbitration clause. That answers your question, so if there's an issue. There is a process for an appeal if you don't like the fact that your application was denied. So anyway, again, other people besides me who have way more knowledge of contract law need to look at this and let me know if there's any provisions or anything like that that we do need to take into account.
And I think we talked about this already, but I can't remember. Will council be able to see a calendar that would?
Well, ideally, since we all have access to our Outlook system in general, there is the capability in Outlook of setting up rooms. So as long as, you should be able to view the visibility of a room. I know that we do not physically have any, actual Outlook rooms set up right now, but that is something that we could absolutely do. And I would love to do it not only for this building, but for parks or for anything else that could be a space that is in need of being used by city people for any reason or reservable for any reason.
Yeah, I would appreciate that.
I just have to find out if there's any cost involved with that. I don't think so, but
There
I
isn't,
would
but-
need,
I'm
I would need to double check on that.
Madam Chair, I don't think that there's a cost, but I will say this. That outlook that we have is very different. So I'm not sure if that comes with it. I know the one that I have at work, it does not cost to set up spaces and rooms and reservations. But I do know that it comes with, you have to give people permission to add stuff on there. So we probably need to designate somebody from council to reserve times when we're here for the year. And then Annalisa to do the other spaces in time.
And just to be clear, it might be me. It's the way I have this worded. It's whoever is the city administration's designated staff person. It may be me. It may be the administrative assistant. I don't know how all that's going to go down. But the way I have it worded, it's an administrative process, but it has to be approved because this is your space and it is a facility and a resource owned by the city and managed by the city.
Well, so my suggestion is that we all take a look at the policy that Ms. Clear has so kindly taken the time to draft for us. Obviously, there are some changes we need to make, like in names and fees and that kind of thing, but for the most part, I think that it's very, very thorough and really appreciate the work that you put in on this. Does anyone else have a question about this particular, the use policy? I would like to keep this on the agenda. Let us take the next month to kind of review this and make the necessary changes, and then once we have it all marked up, we'll give it back to Ms. Clear, and then we'll forward the document to Mr. Dieters at that point in time.
Okay, so just to be clear on the next date, the due date for revisions is by this committee's next meeting, which would be
November 21st.
21st. Would it be the 21st or the
No,
28th?
The 28th, November 28th.
28th, okay, got it.
Sorry.
I just know it's in November. Does anyone else have any other questions for Ms. Clear?
No, but thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Clear.
Yes, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I apologize for my lateness. For some reason, I thought it was a regular council meeting today. That's why I came at 10 till 7. I was really mixed up. Sorry about that.
No worries. Okay, so, so item number 3 is this ordinance 11, 2022. And I am looking at, Ms. Dukes-Dean. So I'm going to let her take it away on that one. I believe I printed the correct version of that. Is that right?
Yes.
So,
So, Ms. Underwood has so graciously allowed time in her committee for us to just review this. If you will remember, this is the legislation for the impound lot and recreation line, the recreation line, and these are the modifications that Kirsten made to Exhibit A. Or you're shaking your head no, because,
Because the line still says revenue and expense. Both lines both say revenue and expense.
well, let me see. I may send out the other one to you because I think maybe that was the wrong one. Let me just double check.
yeah, I did receive several, so the other one didn't look correct, so it may have been,
It
May have
may,
been my
I have to
fault.
look at it again. I just, let me, it's,
This version is incorrect, that's what I know.
okay.
Yep, it does indeed say.
Okay,
revenue
so
expense.
the one that I'm looking at online that she sent, is it say, hold on, let me get it big enough so my eyes can read it. Does she title it Recreation Grant Revenue, Recreation Sponsorship Revenue, the two lines at the top? And she has a miscellaneous $5,000 in for both of those.
The one that was sent to us is titled NCH parentheses 2022 legislation and parentheses ordinance for additional appropriations WMD 091922 RML something something something.
No, that's not it.
Okay.
Okay. That is my fault then.
Oh, no, that's the old one.
Okay.
Okay, I'll send this one to you. And I'm sorry,
One real quick.
my computer is,
I'll print them.
okay, because this is my,
Okay.
Okay, so we'll just take a moment to print that, and I will apologize, because again, I had several versions saved. I didn't want to, I just didn't want to print.
Do you
All
want
of-
a copy of that?
Yes, please.
And Lori, you would like a copy of that?
Oh, sorry.
so do you want me to send it to all of you? And so you'll have it both electronically? Okay.
That would be great.
I have a question. Are you sending out a Word document?
It is a Word document.
Because I was going to say, if you send out a Word document, we can just edit, like, any changes we need to make on there. I know that's what Bill suggested we do.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, if it doesn't change the content, right?
Right, like, I meant topographical stuff, or typographical, not topographical.
Miss Blythe, I always include you on the emails, but somehow you never get them, so let me know if you get this. Ms. Zorb. Ms.
Do you
Ewald.
do the government email or the council email?
No,
That's already set
I've,
up as a group.
I've been typing them in
Oh,
individually. Yes.
Sounds like Lori got it.
Let me see if it'll let me print.
So,
What's that printer called in there?
Something. Might pull it up.
IR?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I can print it. How many copies?
Mine, because I don't have an attachment to the one you sent me.
Okay.
Yep, I don't either.
I don't have an attachment on mine either.
I forwarded it, and so when you forward it, it's supposed to attach.
We have a funky version of Outlook.
We really
That's
do.
all I'm gonna say.
If we'd have
So
gotten the
let's see,
computers that
1, 2,
council
3,
ordered.
4, 5, 6, 7. I don't need it. 6, right?
Yes, 6,
Okay.
please.
Let's see.
I
Unless
apologize.
Marcella would want a copy.
I think
Well, we're
it's-
going to be auditing it tonight anyway, right?
Who's Marcel?
Marcella.
Mashallah.
Okay.
We all three said different names.
It is Marshallah. Marshallah.
I thought it was mashallah.
I think
It
it's
is.
mashallah. There's no
Mashallah.
R.
No R.
It's mashallah.
Mashallah. Okay.
And if she's watching, she'll get
Yeah, she's gonna be laughing.
Mrs. Alexander.
That's well, I talked to her the other day and she didn't correct me, so I assumed that I said it correctly.
She's very nice about it.
Yes, I understand. I have a difficult name also, so
I was gonna say, I feel like every time I hear somebody pronounce your name, it's
I don't
different.
care. I know who you're talking to.
I got called Mimi tonight, so it's okay.
How would your mother pronounce it?
My mom, Arias.
Arias?
Mm-hmm.
I generally, when the kids would have a name, and I would look at the mother and say, how do you pronounce her name?
Yeah.
Because we always screw it up. So, you know, however the mom pronounces it is the correct pronunciation.
All right, are we all ready to? We got the.
You can't, if you call my daughter Aislinn, she's like, that is not my name. But she won't say it, she'll say Aislinn.
I had a
When I-
second grade teacher tell me that my son was deaf because he didn't answer when she called his name. She was calling him James. We call him Jimmy.
Oh, look at your
She says-
nails.
But I said, no wonder he doesn't know who you're talking about. We don't call him James.
When I first
say women don't belong there.
when I first met Aislinn, I was like, she belongs in my family because of her name.
Thank you.
Beautician's name is Ray Dell.
Thank you, Miss
It took me a
Clark.
while to get used to
Okay.
it, but I like it now.
You like it, don't you?
I didn't print myself one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Aislinn, she's like, that's not my name. Thank you.
All right, let's do this thing.
Definitely want their name pronounced right.
Okay, so the last page, is that where it's, I'm looking at it, I know it's super tiny, but it's a recreation grant revenue, and it's, both of the lines represent revenue by it being the 415500 and the 415510. And she has the purpose of the different, lines, and I want to draw attention to 415510. It says for the purpose of recreation, sponsorship, donation, in-kind gifts, because we need to spell out that that is the overall title for everything, because Annalisa said that she didn't prefer that we just name it sponsorship if there was no like legitimate identification that there were other resources that may come in outside of quote sponsorships.
Okay.
And so then the impound lot is the expense, and then they explained to us in our last time we talked about this, the decreased PT overtime and why it was named that. So if you guys are okay with this sheet, which was the only Exhibit A that was holding up this piece of legislation, from here, I would like to see this move to council floor.
I have questions. So this absolutely changed. This isn't just verbiage change. This was,
Because, so I think you're about to say that it took away the expenses line, right?
no, I'm about to say.
Oh, sorry.
Two lines now say an increase of $5,000, where we have been discussing one increase of $5,000 and one decrease of $5,000.
No, remember,
Yes, because I'm staring at it.
It's right here.
That's exactly what this document right here said that I just threw away.
right.
That's what we've been discussing.
But the last time that we talked about it, we talked about that we would not put a decrease in there. That was literally in our last meeting. We
Yeah.
talked about, that's what she was actually
That's what I was trying
referring
to say. Are you talking about specifically the 5,000, or are you talking about that there's no expenses now?
Okay, I don't know what you're using as your.
So are you hung up on
I'm
the,
saying, we don't know where that 10,000 is coming from now.
so that 10,000 is coming from the grants and the revenue that's coming from outside people giving us money
We
through
already
either.
have it.
I'm not sure. So that's what I'm saying. Are you
No.
talking about specifically the 5,000?
So if we're front-loading this $5,000, $10,000 total, it has to come from somewhere.
We're not front-loading that. That money is, now Annalisa's not here, but she did give us a detailed report of her expenses. How she spends that monies is under her. These lines represent a place where we can receive her monies.
So that
That's all.
5,000 is like an X.
Yes.
Like it's just a placeholder.
Yes.
There's not actually $5,000 in that line item currently. It's just a placeholder.
No.
Yes. Yes.
No.
So then,
I think the budget works that.
so then
She does, they don't have, okay, we talked about
Then-
this.
then-
I'm frustrated because we talked about it, not because you're asking questions, but we did actually talk about this a number
Okay,
of times.
So here's what I'm saying. I can have a checkbook that has $0 in it. It exists, but when somebody gives me money, now I have $5,000 in it, right? If I already say I have $5,000 in it, then I have to know where that $5,000 came from.
But that wouldn't show on here.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
This
So-
document wouldn't say I took $5,000 from bowling.
No, all this is, this
You
is,
go back later and you
Yes.
do another ordinance that
Yes.
appropriates the money from there.
Right.
So this document is just saying this doesn't discuss where it's coming from. Because you remember, whenever you put money one place, you have to do an ordinance that says, I'm taking that money from this account to appropriate it to this. Remember how we've always done that? We've always.
I know exactly what you're saying, but what I'm saying is,
how
So
would we
why,
put any?
how would,
so hold on.
so, hang on.
Okay.
Please,
Just let her
please
say
let
what
me
she's
try
gonna say.
this.
Yeah.
Okay? So, $5,000 doesn't just magically appear. It came from somewhere. If this is truly a recreation sponsorship revenue, does Annalise already have $5,000 that she's going to put in here? Or is this just some made-up number? Or do we even need a number in there? Do we just, that's where I'm really going. Do we even need a number in there?
So.
Or when she deposits that money, then we'll have a true and factual number in there instead of some speculated number.
I understand. And so this is why I'm saying we did actually discuss this. Because we have not approved this legislation, we need a line where we can receive the monies that she received. This is what this ordinance is for. It's an appropriation for Annalisa's recreation and the impound. That number is, and I'm not saying that because I don't think you don't understand. I'm just starting from the beginning. And so when we talked about this in all the other spaces, it was agreed that we would put that in there because we don't actually have an amount. We need to account for something. And so we haven't actually taken it from someplace, but once I don't understand because that, we talked about it, because what other way is there to do it? We have to put a number in there. We cannot put her actual numbers in there because we can't put money in these spaces that she has actually received until this actually gets approved. And so once we get this approved, then we can actually put actual numbers in there.
This just can't be blank. So
Yes.
This, we know at least we're getting 5,000 in that.
It absolutely can be blank. Look at the budget.
Let's do.
Look at the budget as
Madam
it
Chair.
exists today.
No, you're Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Right. But this is Ms. Dukestein. This is her party, so.
Go ahead.
So, did Ms. Clear, I know she sent out monies for a budget. Was this part of the money that she asked for in her budget from your committee? Because, I hear what Ms. Zorb is saying, but if this is part of her startup, her budget, was it, because I know she has some dollar amounts that she asked for. And so I hate to use this word, gifting, but is this part of the budget and she's just taking that part, putting it in there to,
Chair.
Yes, or, yes.
Go ahead.
Wait, I thought you were up.
Ms. Dukestein, that's her, that's her.
I have something to
said
add
you're
to this
on.
as well.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I believe that Ms. Clear said that she already had money set aside, but didn't have a place to deposit that.
Yes.
okay.
So that $5,000 is representing that money she already has with nowhere to go.
Which
We
is
don't.
the
We don't know the.
sponsorship.
Please.
That's the
It's,
sponsorship.
what Mr. Wald
Right,
is
so,
saying is absolutely
wait,
accurate.
Okay. I thought I was speaking for myself pretty well.
But I was just confirming what you were
Oh,
saying
thank
is
you.
accurate.
Okay. So anyway, the $5,000 represents the money that she already has, but that's not an exact amount. I believe the amount she gave us was a little under $5,000.
It's 4,830.
It's just rounded up.
So I
So,
have a question with you too. Go ahead.
Okay, so I believe that until that money goes in there, that line item should be blank.
So I have a question. So in order,
Yeas or nays on that?
I didn't answer Miss Mayor Nichols' question either.
Sorry.
Okay,
you go first.
No, go ahead. I'm just waiting till all the questions.
Oh, no, it's okay. Okay, so I'm kind of confused. So, Ms. Orb, you were saying that there doesn't need to be an amount in there. So there have been line items proposed in the past, you're saying, that didn't have any money in there?
I did not say that.
Oh,
You
okay.
said that it has to have, if it's in the budget, it has to have a dollar amount in it, and that is not true.
Oh, no, I wasn't saying that. I was stating why I think they put that in there. But are you saying that you think that they've passed line items in the past that haven't had an amount
If it's
put
in the
in there yet?
budget, it
No,
doesn't need a
because we've
dollar
never
amount in it.
passed anything in the past that was just a revenue line item. It's always a revenue and an
then
expense.
Expense, okay. And then, so, then my
For some
question
reason,
is,
they
so,
don't think the expense needs to be in here.
so if 5,000 is just a placeholder, so is it gonna cause an issue if that is more or less than the amount that we're actually receiving in that line item? So then I don't really understand why this is a discussion at all.
Madam Chair, it's a discussion because the $5,000 doesn't belong in there yet. When you get your paycheck, raise your hand. If you're going to get a paycheck for $4,973, who's going to put in their checkbook $5,000? No one, because that's not that much money.
So then should the amount,
That
I've
should be
heard
blank.
I've heard twice in this conversation that she already had the 4,009 or 4,008.
Yeah.
So if in fact she has that dollar amount, then it should not be zero. It should be what she actually has.
Right.
We cannot put what she actually has in there because she was, at the time that this legislation went through, like it was originally written, she was still getting sponsorships, monies, grants, and she projected that it would be about $5,000, which is how we got to that number. This process has evolved so much and it's taken so long for her to be able to get a recreation appropriation line that now we're at a different discussion. If you want to change it to zero, we can change it to zero. It's not an issue. I was just trying to simply say why it was what it was. But that is it. I mean, the thing that I'm okay with us coming to a place of talking about it. But it is just frustrating when we're trying to get through this legislation. We're trying to get it passed so that we can have appropriations for an impound lot and do justice by Ms. Clear. We all have the same common goal. That's it. It doesn't have to be a bunch of bickering.
No, I don't really understand why we're discussing it at all, because if it doesn't matter how much is in there right now, then it doesn't really matter.
Madam Chair.
But I have something.
I'm insulted that you call this bickering. This is good, healthy discussion to get to the bottom of what's going on. Council's original request, I'm not yelling, council's original request was 4 line items for recreation. We find out through a bunch of convoluted, just very expansive conversations that the expense items are already in the budget. Why didn't she put them in there? That's all we asked for, was 4 lines. We still don't have it.
And we talked about.
Just give us the number. Yeah, this is the expense number.
Okay, so I want to address both halves of what you said. I'll address the part on her part first. We have put ourselves in a vicarious circumstance in terms of asking her what to do. She was trying to satisfy what we asked, and that did not choose to volunteer that there were other expense lines that were already there that could be used. When we had that conversation at that last meeting, she volunteered that information per us pushing through it. So I think it was just, I cannot speak for her. I'm not her. I am only representing what I believe happened. And that is, there were already expense lines that could be used for those expenses present. And so that's why we got what we got, her just trying to satisfy what we asked. And so that's that. Here we are again. Like I said, we started this process. Ms. Clear was still getting monies in. She wasn't sure how much. Ms. Clear is the one who initially said, okay, proposedly the $5,000. We are so far past that. If we want to put 0 in there and then put the accurate number in there, I am fine with that. I was just trying to explain the process. And I agree with you that we are having healthy conversations. It's just that when I'm speaking and people start chuckling or saying things, it makes me turn and try to address each person. And that part is not healthy. That part is wait until you're spoken to. Like, I mean, I can't tell you what to do. You are an adult, but it happens all the time. I see people shake their heads, sit back in their chair. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know who else feels a way about that, but I am absolutely trying to conduct healthy conversations. The finances are a very difficult piece, and the only way that we can handle these pieces of the pie and come out of this and shake hands, even if we disagree, is to just be as most mature selves possible. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to slap anybody on the hand, but I am just telling you how it feels when you guys are asking me questions and I'm trying to supply the answers. I can only imagine how administration feels in those instances. I really believe that in this instance, Kirsten was just trying to satisfy what we were asking her to do. And now we've evolved and we really don't need that $5,000 there. We can take it out.
May I respond? Mm-hmm. I don't think Christian was deliberately trying not to give us information. But I thought the request was very clear. And so we've looked at this twice now, and we still have adjustments to make. So why is that on us that we are not getting it right?
In this instance, the $5,000 is what we were talking about. That is on us because we did not clarify that in the last meeting. The recreation where she had revenue and expense, that was on her. That was her. She didn't, I don't know if she didn't understand, she didn't change it, whatever it was. She accepts that that was on her. this $5,000, if we wanted it changed to zero, being that we've pushed it through thus far with the $5,000, is on us because we are the one that proposed through Annalisa's recommendation that the $5,000 be put there.
So let me clarify. Council recommended that we put $5,000 in that line item?
Annalisa, who's the person who was receiving the money at the
I know
time.
who's receiving, right.
And we said, okay.
I kind of have a point. I don't, is it worth going back and changing it again if it's not gonna change, if it's not gonna make a big deal either way? Because I mean, if it's able to
Maybe
be
jump.
changed after the fact, after it's passed, and they can put whatever number they need to put in there after the fact, is it that we're gonna have to go back and do another piece of legislation to change that amount? I don't totally understand why we want to change it from $5,000 to something else.
Madam Chair, so we've got $5,000 in here. Now, what if what she has to deposit is $5,122.33?
Is that gonna be
We're
an
going to
issue?
change it anyway.
Okay, so that's what I was,
I don't,
well, Mary Jo's saying no, so we won't have to change it?
if she gives us more than $5,000, that needs to be recorded.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, someone approve me to talk, thank you.
Ms. Orb.
So because this is a revenue line item, it can increase beyond this. If this was an expense line item,
Yeah, that's.
we would have to clean it up at the end of the year.
That's what I
My-
thought too.
But I want to address something else that was said before, and it was asked, why are we discussing this? I know why I'm discussing it. I can't speak for anyone else. But I sit in this seat, and I try to be the most accurate, the most correct I can possibly be with the information that I have with my 6 years of experience sitting up here in this chair. So if I ask a question, it's based on my history of sitting in this chair and seeing what I've seen and wanting to understand and make this city a better place and be accurate in the documentation that we have. And that's why I ask questions.
So I'm comfortable with the 5,000. I'm comfortable with leaving it blank. I'm also comfortable with, which one would make you guys feel comfortable? If so, I can change it and then go from there. Because it's just, the reason I'm saying that is we need to move this to council floor. What does council want this number to represent? I can change it right now.
I will tell you from my opinion is, at this point, I feel so beat up that I don't even care. I will leave it at $5,000 and I will vote for it because it'll get cleaned up later.
No,
Because I don't think it's accurate, but you know what? I don't care at this point. I don't.
But you just said that the revenues don't need to be cleaned up, right?
They need to be accurate.
Right, but, okay.
Once the line item is generated,
We just got hounded at the audit because our
and then
stuff
when
wasn't
monies
accurate.
come in, and then when you do your cleanup ordinance, the numbers will be whatever they're gonna be.
Right,
But the cleanup ordinance is expenses, it's not revenue.
right.
Okay. We don't have the money. In lieu of accuracy, I will change both those lines to zero.
Okay.
Where was the grant money coming from?
I can
I
show
don't
it to
know
you right
what
now.
grants that she had. Ms. Anderson has the breakdown, she provided us through her committee, the breakdown of the money that she received. And then the impound lot. Are you guys comfortable with that?
Looks good to me.
I am.
Okay, so I'm gonna change this, and then I'm going to resend it back out if we can allow Ms. Underwood to take her committee back over and move on to the next online item, and then maybe in new business, we can just say, is this fine? Is that okay?
Can we just say it, ask if
Let's
it's
do
fine
then.
now? And we'll-
Sorry.
and we'll-
Well, it's gonna take me a second to change it.
But you're only changing just those two numbers, right?
I am, but the way
changing-
that she sent it, I have to, it's gonna this is, the Outlook and the compatibility, it's gonna take me a second with the
It's okay.
computer that I
So you're
have.
just changing 5,000 to 0,
Yes,
right?
I'm changing both the, line 415500 recreation grant revenue and 415510 recreation sponsorship revenue. Both of those in the increase column to 0.
Everybody.
Because we don't actually have funds in those spaces right now. And then,
Yes.
So
And
I'm
then
going to
that-
ask a really silly question. And I hear you're trying to get to the end of this, and I get it. But if we're going to change it, why don't we just change it to the factual number that she has, the 48,030, the 40, whatever it is. Not 48,000.
Because actually-
I think
4,830.
she has more
Because
money
all
than
of that is not, is split, it's
Both of
different
that.
areas.
Both
It's
that
a
and
combination.
All right,
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, I think.
So
yeah,
I
think
guess
she
my only
actually-
question is, I want to be sure that these are only, you're changing it to 0, but we're not going to go back to any more line items.
What do you mean? I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Because we said I heard 4 line items for recreation.
No, it's,
Madam Chair, that was our original request, but it was explained in the middle of the meeting, last council meeting, that they already exist.
Those two
So
expenses.
she was just giving us line items
These
that
are-
did not exist.
Okay.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So we're good to send this back to council agenda?
Yes.
yes, please.
Okay, all right. And, all righty. So we will, on we go to, I received the resolution approving the credit card policy. Mr. Graver sent that to me, and it's my understanding, I did speak to Mr. Mosby about this, that this is the current credit card policy, but as a result of the recommendation of the audit, it needs to be in a resolution approved by council. So, there's no resolution number, but apparently this is the credit card policy. Thoughts?
I haven't read it, so I don't have any thoughts.
I have a question. Under the limitations, it says the credit card's limitations are based on each employee's seniority level in the city, and it says, for an example, city manager's $5,000. Is that, and maybe I haven't read all the way through, is that in a one-time transaction, or is that a year-long? It's monthly?
I thought it was the balance,
The balance
yes.
for the year?
No, for the
No,
month.
for the
So
month.
if, once it's paid off, even if it's in the month, you can't go,
You can't go over this monthly.
So Chief, can you talk into the microphone?
I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was going to be asked a whole lot of questions. I was here for the next meeting. I do believe that it's monthly, that's the 5,000 is actually the limit that because when we started it was with Fifth Third. So Fifth Third has a $5,000 balance on it. If a department head or somebody who has that credit card uses that credit card for something, then hurries up and gets the receipt, invoice, turns it into a purchase order, checks that out, and it's credited, then it would go back to that $5,000 limit, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question that I think maybe it's just not an incomplete thought for me, but right above the limitations, the last dotted, it says each transaction made with the city must be reported to the finance department within 30 days after the purchase. So what happens if it's after the 30 days? Are they not reimbursed? I mean,
It ends up on the audit. That's what we just sat through.
You get in trouble and
so,
get
so
blasted in the
it's a dead
media.
end, 30 days, or, is that
No,
what you're saying?
I don't think so. I think we just get embarrassed in the media.
Oh, lovely.
I have a question.
Sure.
This is because I don't really understand what it means. So, what Ms. Orb just read, the credit card limitations are based on employee seniority level, but then it has like the same amount for everybody except for the building inspector. I don't really understand what that means by seniority level, and then this. Am I missing something?
I am not certain.
Okay.
I was just, it's my understanding that this is what the credit card policy is.
Okay.
And where, it was just recommended that we approve the credit card policy. Now, if we don't want to approve the credit card policy, then,
We
we
can change it.
we need to figure that out and send some feedback or whatever we need to do. But that is kind of what my marching orders were.
Right now, I believe it's just the department heads who have credit cards and the city administrator.
So that's the seniority level.
And if I,
And Ms. Dewald, can I, I'm sorry. Ms. Dewald, if you read down the disciplinary actions,
Yes.
I think
That's-
there's
yep.
your answer to that 30-day question.
That's
Okay,
what I
because I
was gonna
didn't
say.
get that far.
Yep.
Thanks.
That's what I was gonna say.
And could it be too that because Bill, the building inspector, I almost said a name, is through XPEX? I mean, really, he's not a department of his own, is he? So it seems reasonable the way it's
contractor.
listed.
if I may.
Sure.
I do believe that after the audit, that we were kind of given a template of best practices, and this was one of those templates. So I think what they tried to go through is put in, given the template, put it in to reflect more of what we resemble here in North College Hill, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And so they put it in for those amounts for for the different department heads, but I think it also has something to do with the number of people in those departments, the number of uses, all of those kind of things I think were factored in, if that makes sense too.
Sure, thank you.
I think I'm okay with this the way it reads.
Yeah, this looks fine to me.
Okay, so is everyone okay with the credit card policy?
Can we just get a number on it, obviously, before it goes to the council?
That's what
We
the
don't
clerk
number
does.
them. Oh, I'm sorry.
The clerk does.
Sorry,
It goes to the clerk, it'll go to him like this.
you learn something new every day.
Yeah, no. And, and it used to be, I don't know how the committee heads are still doing it, we would send it to Mike, president of council, and he would forward it on, or Ron.
Well, I actually don't know. I just know what the rules say. But, we don't always follow the rules, so I just send it to all three.
There you
And
go.
that way I know that the right person has received it. So
There you go.
I will forward this to Mr. Graver, Mr. Hedger, and Mr. Mosby. So everybody got it. So right person got it.
It's supposed to go to the president. And he puts it, he already put it in a committee, so
He
he
did.
tells the clerk to put it on the agenda.
Okay, so any old business anybody wants to talk about?
No.
Nope.
Any new business that anybody wants to talk about? Okay, hearing none. It is 7:34, and we've been in the meeting exactly an hour, so I am going to adjourn the Rules and Public Policy meeting and just ask if we can take a 5-minute break before we start the public safety meeting. Thank you.
All right, I'm sending these minutes to you.
Good evening and welcome to the North College Hill Public Safety Committee meeting. Has everybody received a copy of the agenda? Chief Schran, I didn't send you one. Would you like a copy of the agenda? Oh, you have one. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so it appears that police news report is number 1 on our agenda, and we are so, Chief Schran has graciously came to our meeting this evening. Thank you very much. And if you would just tell us what's been going on at the police department and kind of give us a summary of the report, we would appreciate that.
Yeah. So obviously we've been extremely busy this year. Things have the officers have been doing a really good job, given the fact that right now and for the whole year we started out for the year and we were down 6 full-time spots out of a department of 17. We have been working diligently to try to replace those spots. We are currently down to 3 full-time positions, and still conducting interviews, still doing everything that we can for that, and looking at different ways that we can get qualified people in here to work with us and to do the job. I kind of equate it to basic business principles of supply and demand. When the supply of police officers is plentiful and the demand is low, then the price is low. When the supply is not there and the demand for police officers is high like it is now, obviously the price is going up and up and up, and it's harder and harder to fill that. And just to try to clue you in on a few things, being crass in some ways, right now my main priorities are 2 major things. One, to have trained officers in the seats of cruisers, and those seem to be the 2 things that I find the hardest right now to be able to fill, which is one of the reasons why I'm also here tonight, is to try to talk to you folks about my budget, what I'm seeing coming in based on those 2 things, and just in some ways present an idea, if you would indulge me, if I can.
Absolutely.
There.
Sorry, just for the minutes, can you repeat? I know you said your first priority is making sure they're trained officers and cruisers. Now, what was your second?
The first priority is the trained officers, and I guess the second priority would be the cruisers.
Okay, just making sure I got that right for the minutes. Thank you.
Can I steal that one?
That's okay. I can look off with Ms. Dewell. Thank you.
While you're walking around, I have another question. So these stats that are in this report, are these accumulative through the year, or this is just the month of September?
It might be a combination.
Up here it says September 2022, but I don't know if that means,
Like year to date or?
So this one is a year-to-date comparison on the first page, and then the second page after that, everything else is just September numbers.
thank you.
And I apologize, I've been kind of busy with everything. I try to get those stats out to on more of a timely basis, and I'm kind of happy. I went down last week and I started working with Annalise, who's doing some things on the website. We're going to try to make it easy, because what I'd love to do, that's always been my goal, is to try to put those kind of stats out there so that everybody can get them, and it's just easier than me trying to pump it out all the time. So I think that's one thing that hopefully we'll be able to get accomplished. Okay. So what I handed everybody is just a little bit of my proposal. As I said, that this year we have been, for the most part, down 6 full-time officers for most of the year. And as we replace those, we're replacing them with officers that are coming in at some of the lower end of the pay scales versus everything else. We've changed schedules. I've worked with the union. We went from an 8-hour schedule to a 12-hour schedule, trying to avoid as much overtime as possible. And so with all of that, I know it came up as far as where we were going to get money from the TOWAD in, and I started looking at where we were at and forecasting for the year in the salaries. And so what this is a basic breakdown of where we're at with all the salaries added up from the general fund and the levy, if you would. Okay, so the first line item, for example, kind of corresponds to, on the first page, to the second package of pages, which is my budget. So in CMI, which is the current software that we're using, that is a current month-to-date expense report that I print out. As you can see, that I printed out that today. Now, it does run a little bit behind, but I factored in all those things in working with Kirsten today to try to give the most accurate report that we could. Okay? So where I was at was roughly for the year, we have $315,000 left in salaries full-time professional from the general fund. And if you look at the last numbers on the side of that, I wrote 101 to indicate which account that comes out of. So the 101 is the general fund. Okay. We then have $50,000 left in salaries full-time clerical from the general fund. $90,355 left in the salaries part-time in the 101, $14,000 in salaries for part-time clerical in the general fund, $85,000 in the police overtime in the general fund, and $12,000 in the police overtime from the levy. So that tallies up to $1,238,670,000. And if you look at it, I guess the way payroll has been previously set up, when I submit payroll, I just submit payroll to the finance department with my officers and my staff and the number of hours worked overtime. I just submit that spreadsheet, and then they put it into Paycor and cut the checks. I don't have any hand, if you would, in which account or line item that comes out of, if that makes sense. So when you look at, if you look at the 301 account, the levy money, you'll see that the full-time salaries in the levy money in the 301 has been overdrawn by $779,639, because generally speaking, what that tells me is they've just set it up to just come out of that one line item, and then I guess they clean it up. Okay. So what I did was I subtracted from that $1,238,670. I subtracted that from it, and I came up with a total of $459,039. Okay. I did an average of, I know we have 5 payrolls left. I did an average of $60,000 per payroll. I can tell you that last payroll with all the time off that we had, everything else, and we had a lot, that was one of our largest payrolls at $56,000. So I kind of inflated that a little bit to make sure that we had enough wiggle room for the rest of the year. And basically, a long story short is by the time I get down to all of the numbers, and I can show you all of the numbers, we are going to be giving back, depending upon where it's all coming from, we are going to be giving back $99,749.88 just from the salary line items alone, based on how short we've been this year. Okay? And that's even after we take out $10,000 for the TOWAT. Okay? So my recommendation is this. We have money left in those salary line items because of all the things that we've had to do and the moving around of shifts and all the other things to try to mitigate overtime. We don't always know when we have money. So my recommendation was to be able to ask council to put it on and to maybe do the cleanup ordinance, or when you're doing the cleanup ordinance, authorize us to pay off the 2 chargers that we bought. We bought the chargers at $35,000 a piece, and we put them on a 4-year lease program, okay? But there's no penalties for paying them off early. Okay, so my thought process is this, as I started off with saying that my 2 major goals right now are to get trained people in the seats of cruisers, number 1 and number 2. I'm working and doing everything I can through interviews and trying to look at what we could do to sponsor people through the academy, to do anything we can to get, and recruiting and getting our numbers out in the ranks. That's what I'm doing for the number 1 priority. The number 2 priority for us has to be the cars in our fleet. So that would be my recommendation, and that's why you see the last tier, or the last thing there is to pay off the Chargers and what we would still have left in the carryover.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
nothing rings sweeter to my ears than pay off a loan. So I personally, I don't know how the rest of council feels, but I think that's a great idea. And with that 29,000 carryover, then that just goes back into your budget, or?
Depending upon how it moves around, because everything was taken out of the general fund the levy money for payroll. So by the time you factor everything in, that will actually go back into the general fund, and that will be considered, my understanding is that will be considered part of the carryover that council will get to reappropriate next year.
Madam Chair.
Question 2, and I'm done. So with these 2 payoffs, how many other lease cars do we have in the police fleet?
That is a beautiful segue, so thank you.
Can I ask my question first?
Ms.
Before you-
Orb, yes.
So when you say pay off the Chargers, you mean buy out the lease and we now own these and they're no longer leased?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying to me?
Yes, and I can tell you that in the leasing process, what they do for government vehicles, it's not like a typical lease that you would do for a normal private car. So basically, the lease and the lease agreements for government entities that way, it's really not a lease, it's more like stretching out the payments over that time. Does that make sense? No matter what, even with the leases, if we were to not pay off these Chargers, okay, we have 4 years. We pay off those Chargers over the 4 years. Between the 2 cars, I think it's like $18,000 a year we pay. When the end of that 4-year term is done, they write it off and we still own the cars. The benefit of leasing the cars that way is being that if you don't have all the money up front, you can still get newer cars, you can still get into those cars and do that. And a lot of agencies prefer to do that because the cost of cars just keeps rising, and you can put the cars on, like Mr. Mosby would say, more of a fixed income of what's coming out time after time. The other reason that was appealing to us is our hope was eventually to get, between the tow lot, between everything, to get it under control with the vehicle fleet and the maintenance, where the cars, for the most part, were being leased, and we got to, when they were done being leased and they were ours, we got to decide whether we were going to turn around and sell them, right? Because they were a maintenance trap or a nightmare for us maintenance-wise, or if we were going to keep them. But the whole time we were paying them off, they would, for the most part, be under warranty. So if anything major happened, we would have that covered. Because the other thing I didn't like is, if you've looked at my budget over the last couple of years, our vehicle maintenance budget keeps creeping up and up and up too, because our cars are getting older and they keep breaking down. And we're spending a lot of money in the vehicle maintenance budget as well, just to keep the cars out on the road.
I'm not sure I understood what you just said. So if we buy out the car, are you saying are we losing out on any of that warranty if they are no longer being leased?
No.
Is there any warranty while they're being leased? I guess that's the question.
The warranty, whether we buy it or whether we lease it, will still be the same.
Okay.
Okay, we
Yep.
had to go with a 4-year lease because we couldn't afford the 3-year lease, or we thought at the time. The vehicle warranty remains 3 years and 36,000 miles.
Okay.
Okay, I'm really sorry. This is, because I wasn't listening to the numbers super closely, so then I got lost. Okay, so you said you had how much left over from, like, all the stuff you guys didn't have to do this year? It can
So
even-
by the time, by the time we're done, we will have,
It can even be a rough estimate.
99.
$99,749 left.
Okay. And then you want to spend how much on the cars?
$70,400.
And then, sorry, did you have, and this is just me not understanding, the extra 30,000-ish, do you have a plan for that? Or is that not up to you to spend, or what's the plan for that 30,000?
So, I did not have a plan for that 30,000. I'm going to look at the rest of my budget and see where we can go and do into that.
Because I'm even thinking, and I don't know if this is appropriate or possible, but if we have this leftover money because all of your guys had to pick up so many shifts and like change around their schedules, could it be used as like an end of the year bonus kind of thing? Is that appropriate? Is that
I
not?
would say, in my opinion, I would hold off on that, and here's the reason I say that. I also applied for the Attorney General's grant for officer retention, wellness, and bonuses that way.
Oh, yeah.
And if that happens, I have not gotten word. I heard from them, and they did say that they really liked our application and that we fit all the criteria based on our numbers pre-COVID to our numbers in after COVID being down so many. So I would like to think that that's a good
Right,
sign.
right.
And if that happens over those 2 years, they will already be getting bonuses, and
this 30,000 would be
what we potentially could be awarded would be close to, $500,000 a piece for each year for the police department.
Right.
So-
this money could be spent somewhere else where you guys need it. Got it.
Correct.
Got it.
And
Okay.
and I guess that would be my point is, given that, I think that, I think I've left myself plenty of wiggle room with the 6 payrolls left. I guess I would say with that, leave that with salaries, because salaries is the biggest chunk of my budget. Leave that there for the wiggle room, and if it comes back and that's what we have and carry over to the general fund, so be it.
That'll be it, right?
Madam Chair, I have a question, but I'd like to have you go into whatever you were talking about when you referred to Mrs. Dewald's question as a segue to your next thing, because I think you might answer what I'm going to ask in that segue.
So the next things that I have in the packets for everybody was a breakdown of equipment capital needed. So basically what we were going to spend if we were to not do this. So the first one was equipment capital needed without paying off the chargers this year. So if we were to decide to not do that, this is what it would look like in our future plans in the police department in the leasing of cars. We have 7 cars in our fleet, and to replace all 7 of those cars eventually, right? The plan was 2 this year, 2 next year, 2 the following year, and then 1. This is what that breakdown would look like. And so for next year in 2023, if we chose not to do this, we would need, and I think that's what originally I had put in for, roughly $38,000 to make in lease payments to be able to have 4 new vehicles out there, the 2 Chargers, plus we went ahead and put an order in on the Tahoes. Right now, the hardest thing is with chips and all the other things going on in the car market. It's been so bad that they literally opened up the bidding window, if you would, for police cars for 1 week this year. And if you didn't get your itemized list in of what exactly you wanted, you aren't getting cars. And they also will not allow, like, what used to happen was Lebanon Ford would be the chosen state bid vendor for this area, and they would go ahead and they would put their orders in and buy extra. They're not allowing them to do that. If you don't have a police department that is actually ordering these, they're not making them. They're not doing it.
I'm sorry.
And so I was being funny in a way, but I was trying to tell you and to clue everybody in on the real situation of what we're dealing with. We do have a shortage of officers. We also have a shortage in the cars. And as much as I hate to say it, the two most important things to me in a police department that keep everything running is a trained officer in a cruiser answering those 911 calls and coming out to help everybody. And it's frustrating at this point in time because our call volume is not going down. People are still calling 911. They still need help. All of those things are still happening. We're just struggling to get cars. And again, just like that supply and demand scenario I gave you earlier, the supply of cars is not there, but the demand is really high. So I see this as an opportunity to set us up for the future. Okay? In that scenario, then you'll see that in 2024, I put roughly $27,000 in lease payments for the first year. And I put Tahoes, Explorers, Durangos, I put anything out there. They've informed us they're not going to make the Chargers anymore. They want to go away from sedans. So that only really gives you those three options, if you would. And I don't anticipate with the car shortage and the chips and all the things going on that one, the way they've created the demand, I don't anticipate the price going down, unfortunately. And then 2025 would be probably one of the worst years along with 26 because by that time to replace our whole fleet around, you would be paying off or paying on the lease for the 2 Chargers, 2 Tahoes, 2 of whatever else we decided to get, and then the 1 other vehicle by the time you were able to replace the fleet.
And these are kind of, sorry to interrupt, these are kind of like good estimates. Like these could go up or down or.
This is the best estimate I could give you based on, I know what the Chargers and the Tahoes are going to cost us.
Right.
Because we've already put those orders in or we already have them. So I know that that's a fixed and true accurate cost. What I'm telling you is when you look at the first one for 2024 and you see that I put $27,000 down and I don't know what kind of car, honestly, it's a matter of what we can get, right? And I was trying to be realistic and say, and just being honest and say, I don't know how much it's going to cost. I added about $7,000 in those payments there because I don't know what it is, but I can be realistic and I don't think we're gonna go down in cost. I would love to be pleasantly surprised, but I have to plan for the worst.
So,
Can you-
oh, sorry.
So then the next one would be the equipment capital needed for the next few years if we were to pay it off. And then I left you with the final sheet, and that is the comparison side by side with it over those years because I thought you could see it better that way.
What do we use the Tahoes for?
We don't have the Tahoes yet. We ordered those to be built, and they will come in this next year.
So what do we use the Tahoes for?
They will be used for patrol vehicles.
Really?
Trucks.
SUVs.
A large SUV.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this year we could not get into the Explorers. They just kind of wiped that out, and the Explorers were going to be $39,000 a piece. We missed the window for Dodge, and we were lucky to find the window for the Chevy. And Chevys, they were only doing either the Silverados, the trucks, or the Tahoes. The Tahoes were roughly $40,000, and based on our research, were the just much better built vehicles than the Explorers and the others. And it is a big SUV, but most of my rank and file like the Tahoe idea better because just how much room and space it gives you for prisoners, for the officers. By the time you put in the partitions and the inserts there for putting prisoners in the back seat, plus all the room it gives you in the back that's more secure in that trunk space because of it being a bigger SUV.
So it's $18,000 a year to lease 2 Chargers, but it's $20,000 a year to lease 1 Tahoe.
2. I'm sorry, yes, two Tahoes.
It has that like 2 number Tahoes.
Okay, and then the year 2023, it does not have a 2 next to it.
I'm sorry, that was my fault. Yes, that's for two Tahoes.
So you kind of answered my question. I think Ms. Dewald asked, if we pay the vehicles off, the Chargers off, how many then leases do we still have open yet?
This year, we would have none.
Okay, and then
And then-
2023?
2023,
two?
we would have two, because
That's
we've already
the-
put the order in for the Tahoes, and they can arrive any day. They could arrive any day today, they could arrive anytime January, they could arrive anytime middle of the year next year. I don't know when they're gonna, but we had to order cars, and again, we had like a 2-week window, or we were going to just not be able to order cars and have cars.
But those leases, like the payments due, won't start until 2023.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So even if the Tahoes were to show up tomorrow, those would not, that lease payment wouldn't be due until sometime, even in the end of 2023.
And then, are you retiring 2 of the cars?
Yes.
Because, okay, in 2023 when those come in?
Yes. So my goal was, where we didn't have that luxury this last time with the Chargers, my goal is to be able to retire 2 of the cars, to be able to sell those, and whatever we get from that sales, to be able to use that to offset the cost of new equipment to go in the Tahoes. Because, for example, the partitions and the cages that go in the back of the police cruisers, sometimes you can get them to fit if you stick with Explorers, so on and so forth, although they do change the interior dimensions so that you have to buy new stuff. But all of the internals are not going to fit in from Explorer to a Tahoe, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So our goal was to sell off those 2 Explorers, whatever 2 are the worst that are causing us maintenance problems, right? To be able to sell those off, and to be able to use that money to offset the upfitting, if you would, or the new things that need to go in the Tahoes.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Dewald and then Ms. Blythe.
Okay.
So when you say retire 2 cars, and then you were talking about the ones that need the most maintenance, can you identify those cars at this time? I'd hate to think it was the Chargers that we just got.
It is not the Chargers that we just got.
Okay.
It would be 2 Explorers. I don't know the exact car numbers. I can tell you that Officer Wall has been in charge of the vehicle maintenance and working on that. I know she knows exactly which 2 cars
Okay.
are, because she's been talking to me about that every day of, hey, when are they coming in? Because they're starting to show transmission issues that,
Right. And then my other issue is a disappointment that we're getting back into leasing cars. I would really hope that we could get out of that, but it looks like it's going to be a trend now that no one's going to stop.
Isn't that kind of standard across police departments though, to lease cars?
it is a growing trend, and a lot of police departments are going that route because of the government lease, and that there's really not too much of a downside because it's not like a lease like you're turning the car back in when you're done. Because they write it off and say it's your car when you're done with it anyway, it really is deferring. They call it a lease, but I guess in my own ways to keep it straight, you really are just deferring a payment so it makes it more affordable, especially with the cost going up. Mm-hmm. But that's also why I wanted to come here tonight and to explain that to everybody, because I see an opportunity to set us up for the next couple of years when we don't know what we're going to have.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Blythe and then Ms. Dukestein.
I had 2 questions. How exactly are the 2 large Tahoes will be delivered? Like some type of a tow truck thing, or will they drive them in?
Usually they'll call me and they'll tell me that they're ready,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll either have lot people drive them down to us and drop them off, or if it's close to our installer, they'll tell me, hey, they're in and they're ready. A lot of times I can tell them, hey, just go and drop them off to our installer that installs all the lights and sirens and all the equipment.
Okay. Yeah, and then that was my second question. I heard you talk about inner fittings. once you purchase the Tahoe, do you then have to pay someone to get it suited to your need, whatever it is, to secure it in the back?
Yes, we do.
That's what I was wondering. I heard you mention that. So so they make them standard to Chevrolet or Ford or whatever, but then you have to outfit them for your personal needs.
ma'am.
Okay.
So like
Gotcha.
last year, each charger, to put brand new equipment in the charger, each charger, the lights, the sirens, the partition, the console, all the stuff that needed to be into that was approximately $10,000 each car as well.
So they don't build to suit, it's generic.
No, it's a giant business, and they have us going one way or another, unfortunately.
I see, making more money.
And it's the necessary evil, because over the course of my career, what I've also noticed is every couple of years, they'll change the Explorer's dimensions, even if it looks the same on the outside, because then your partitions and all your other stuff won't fit in it as well. I wish I could say it wasn't that way, but they know the game. They've been doing this very well, and unfortunately, it's the cost we have to pay for doing business.
Ms. Duxstein?
The government leases, do the interest rates, there are interest rates, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you said there's not a penalty for paying them off early?
There's not.
And the cost negotiated at the beginning of the term of the government lease, is that the same amount of money that you would have negotiated had you paid cash for the car?
It is. Okay. Apparently it is.
I was just trying to weigh, just so you know, not that it matters, but, is it capital sometimes is important when we're going into a recession, which we're there. It is what it is. And I see your projections, and sometimes it's better to hold on and pay over time if it's not going to be a grave penalty. Paying off isn't always the best answer especially when you need the time. You actually end up saving more money to have more money accessible to our department, whatever comes, especially because we're looking at rising costs across the board for everything. So, extra money in your pocket in times of, what we're going into. So I was just trying to weigh it out, but it seems like it doesn't matter either way.
Ms. Zorb?
No.
Can you help me understand? I've heard you mention it a couple times, there's a write-off at the end, the government writes off. So how do we get to that point, and how much are they writing off?
So if you usually think of like a personal lease on a vehicle, when you're done with that vehicle, you don't really own it. You leased it for that time, and you just turn that vehicle back in,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
And one of the biggest things for, and it's just my rough understanding, I guess, of vehicles, because me personally, I buy used cars. I don't buy leased cars, would be that you have a certain mileage, you got to stick to that mileage, they own the car, then you give it back to them, you pay penalties if it's over that, all of the other things. On a government lease like that, it's not like that. When you're done, whether you pay it off early, whether you lease it over the terms of that, they basically tell you that you own the car and they'll send you the title for $1. And so it's yours. Basically, it's their way. My understanding from them is it's their way after all the government bailouts for all of the American car manufacturers. It's their way of giving back to the government that way, to say we're going to make it easier to buy and purchase cars for first responders and to do that. They call it a lease, but in reality, it's not really structured that same way like you would a personal lease.
Okay.
Does that?
I understand what you're saying, but does it make sense from the financial perspective? Absolutely not.
Okay.
But I get it. Where I was going, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't missing out on any type of write-off money at the end.
Right.
That's where I was going with that. line.
And so when this idea came up, I went to Kirsten, the CFO, and I made sure that she double checked my work over and over again. She was the one who had to sign the lease and sign for the cars, and so she double checked that and said the same thing, that yes, there is no penalty. We're not going to get penalized for paying it off early. There's going to be no extra money for that. And if I'm not mistaken, her exact words to myself and to Mr. Mosby were, she does agree with this and thinks that we should do it.
So what do you need from council?
Yeah, this works for me. What do you need?
We need a cleanup ordinance or the I'm sorry. My understanding would be we would basically need the authorization for it to be like in a cleanup ordinance to take that money, and however council needs to do that, I'm not sure, to authorize the finance office and Mr. Mosby to take that money, $70,000, out of whatever line item and salaries that is there, whichever line item you would prefer, and to put that into capital equipment, and authorize Kirsten to be able to pay off the chargers.
So Chief Schramm, with your permission, what I am going to do is shuffle this over to Ms. Dukestein's committee, because that sounds like some budget and finance things. So it sounds like a great idea, I think.
Unless there's a timeline on it.
Is there a deadline?
Yeah, I was going to say that I don't believe that there's a deadline other than the end of the year. And so I'm available to discuss that. I just, that would be my only thing is obviously if we don't get it done by the end of the year and the time that Kirsten and everybody has to close the books, it's going to go back to the general fund anyway. So I think even then we could reappropriate it and go out that way.
I know that it's a lot, especially with how busy you all are. However, what I would ask or suggest is that maybe you come to the budget and finance meetings and participate in those, and maybe, if she sends out the agenda, we can kind of make it so that you can we can do that part first. I don't know. So-
Yes, that sounds perfect. And I just need to know, do I need to send Mr. Dieters anything? Like, does this have to be, okay?
You say yes?
I don't
It
I don't-
would be a
Mr. Mosby said
resolution,
no.
yes.
What's the answer? Yes or no?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
no resolution needed.
No, I think he's saying no to be sent to Dieters.
Are you going to send it, or is it not need? Oh, there you go. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chief Schramm. This is very, very thorough. I'm very excited about
Thank you.
everything that you're doing over there, and thank you so much. And since you didn't mention it, I'm going to mention it for you. I've noticed that you did a couple of was it a cruiser cram thing? So I see these cruisers at Kroger's, and they're putting them full of food. You don't talk about those kinds of things, but I know that those kinds of things are going on. If you could just kind of give us a brief kind of that.
Yeah, so we have our very own police association here. It's kind of like their very own fraternal order of police, if you would. They pay dues into it. I am not in charge, and I do not supervise that per se as the chief. But I can tell you that that is one of the things that I've always asked for, and I always have really appreciated. And so it's a give and take, because although they're not directly supervised by me as the chief, because they're their own 501c3 and organization, they do represent us, and I do allow them to go in uniform for those kind of things. And so I always appreciate all the things that they do that way. For example, they're the ones who are putting on the Crama Cruiser events. They're the ones who are putting together fundraisers and benefits for officers and their wives and things that way that they're doing. They're the ones who are going to buy candy out of those dues and those things for trunk or treat and for, different events that way. And I've always tried to figure out how I navigate that as the police chief, since I'm not in charge of them. Right? They have their own social media page. They have their own things that way, and it's their dues. It's their money. So I was the president of the association for many, many years. I'm proud to say that that was one of hopefully the legacies that I left, was that community service and those things. Everybody knows that we incorporated the 4 C's of our values, and that community, that commitment. Those things are the things that I really value. So yes, I'm very proud to see them doing it. And if you're not hearing from me on all the things they're doing, unfortunately, that's kind of why, is because they work independently. I help them with some of those things, but it's not directly me, if that would.
I do
And even though it is,
But it is officers.
and it is officers, and it is a lot of the things that they do.
And
And
they
that's
are
why
giving
I'm
back
so
to our
proud of
community.
those things, because to me, I'm trying to hire people that really care about this community. I'm trying to hire future leaders. I'm trying to hire people that are going to take my spot someday, that believe in those same values that I do. And when I see those things, I'm very proud of them. And so I can't thank you enough for the things that you've said and that you've noticed the things that they do, because I know that means a lot to them. But hopefully you guys understand, that's why I don't highlight it, and I don't say the upcoming events and all the things. I let them take that and do that, and those are the things that they do, and that they do very well. Right? And some of it is just because of the 501c3 status,
Right.
and them being able to take donations and then being able to give out the donations and sponsor different things. I think that they really did a good job with that one, because they put themselves in a good position to really be good stewards for this community, and that means a lot to us.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you so much for coming to the meeting this evening and giving us your time and this great information.
Thank you.
So we also have space for fire department, but we don't have a representative here this evening.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Can I talk to Chief Schran for one more quick second while you're still on police? I'm sorry.
Yes.
So, Chief Schran, I know at the last council meeting, I requested Mr. Mosby talk to you about possibly increasing.
Patrols.
Thank you. That word left me. Patrols at the west end of Galbraith. We're hearing a lot of citizens talking about people using that center lane as a passing lane. And we're just kind of hoping that you guys can, I don't know, have a increased presence and possibly reduce some of that, if not completely negate it all.
I know that I did get that message, and I know that, for example, I put that memo out, and this weekend, the officers on each shift wrote 25 tickets along that area just this weekend alone, based on those different things.
That is
I know
awesome news.
I know like I said, I know they're working a lot of overtime. They're working a lot of long hours. And so I try to be diligent and weigh the scale versus those things. But when those complaints come to me, we do take them seriously and do what we can. The only thing I guess I would ask for in the future is this: when those complaints come in, if we can ask for times a day help us a lot, because it definitely helps us to allocate our resources during the right times when those are happening. It means a different thing to us if you would. The school asks us every day to be there at 7 o'clock, because they're constantly complaining about the parents and the drop-off lanes and the parents with all the kids walking and the things that way. So trying to be out on Galbraith down by the golf course or somewhere else during that time, we have to kind of weigh that because we only have so many resources, if that makes sense. So we did get that complaint. We did take that seriously, and we are making more of an effort and put that memo out. The only thing I would just respectfully ask for in the future is keep those complaints coming, because we'll help take care of you. But if you could narrow it down for any kind of time frame for us, that would honestly help us a lot going forward.
I will certainly do that in the future, and
Thank you.
I sincerely appreciate you putting attention to that.
You're
And something too, I mean, I don't speak for you, Chief Sharon, or anybody else on council, but I know from my point of view, like the reason I like would bring this kind of stuff up isn't so like, oh, we want more people to get tickets, and oh, we're glad that your officers gave out so many tickets. It's more that we hear these horror stories and we see them ourselves as drivers of people using the turn lane as passing lane, and of people speeding when there are kids walking across the street. And we want to make sure that that's stopped, and we appreciate you helping in that sense. And it stinks that it turns out that, 25 tickets are having to be written, but if that's going to keep people from dangerously breaking the law, then we
Yes.
appreciate it. We do. At least I do.
And
Madam Chair, I'd like to address that too. Same sentiments. I think we had talked about some speed bumps, whatever, closing off, whatever with that lane or what have you. And sometimes it's just the space, like when you go through a certain area, like I need to slow down through here. The police are always here. I mean, I even do that. So just changing the expectation there and just setting precedents that we're watching you sometimes is enough. And when everyone's going the speed limit, you rarely can have that person just, and then they become very obvious even if you do. So setting precedents is good.
And I agree. It's been, like I said, it's been a rough year. They've been down a lot of folks. And then on top of that, we're coming down to crunch time. Part of what I put in the tally here, the Attorney General's office put out a mandate this year that every single police officer in the state of Ohio has to do 24 hours of paid training, called continued professional training. And if they don't complete it, they are not certified, and they don't get to work next year. So amongst everything else, they kind of rolled that out. Yes, we applied for that grant, and we got 75% of their time and their everything paid for. But we're coming down to crunch time, and they rolled it out where they told everybody they were going to do online training, but the online training wasn't available until at least June. So everybody's kind of, right now is crunch time, why I've got everything going on of trying to make sure that everybody gets the 24 hours in, along with handling all of our other routine calls, all of our other things, as well as everything else. So it's just that constant juggling act to do the best we can for everybody. But
Does it have to be like government approved trainings?
there's the online training has to be through the Attorney General's online website, and yes, it's approved training. It's in certain core hours. For example, like one topic that's mandatory is 4 hours of cultural diversity and ethics. There's 4 hours on domestic violence. There's 4 hours on active shooter, active threat, and in those different scenarios. If that,
So departmentally, you guys can't do a training? Like that speaks to the online training, right?
so there was 3 ways that we could do that this year. We could send everybody away to either up to London, Ohio, which is where their main academy is, or we could send them to an instructor like at the Oaks or Butler Tech, and pay them per class, per officer, a certain amount. They told us that we could send somebody to like an instructor class and do their curriculum and host that in-house. Or we could have each officer get on to their access their online training program and take the classes like webinars and things like that online, based on how short of people we are, changing the schedules, all the other things, we chose to do what we thought was the best fit for us, was to do all of those things online, to have them here and to try to do that with the best of our schedule. It's proven to be a little bit challenging with, honestly, how short-staffed we've been, but I'm going to keep pushing and they'll get it done.
Madam Chair.
Chief Schran, will you, I know we have a lot of questions for the chief, and it's because we don't see you enough, I think. But what I will just ask is just to remind everyone that it is 8:30, and I try to be respectful of everybody's time, even the chief's time. So if, with your permission, if anyone has any further questions for the chief, if you could send him an email. And he has indicated that he's willing to come to the Budget and Finance meeting as well. So thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
coming out.
And personally, my schedule is cleared up. I'm done coaching for the season. So between myself or one of my lieutenants, we've made it a point that we're going to try to be at the rest of the meetings. So
Thank you so much. We
You're
appreciate that. So I'm going to kind of move us right along here. So we have, is it Monty? Monty Jones, who is here with, and I emailed a copy of their proposal with the Alley B and Third Alley. So, and I briefly spoke to Mr. Mosby about kind of logistics and how this would work. And I think that what would happen is, once we kind of approve it and get whatever, if we approve it, then the administration could handle it from there, just because of the amount of the a potential.
Logistics? Oh, sorry. I was trying to follow your word. Go ahead.
Just the invoice total, for lack of a better, yeah. Anybody have, I mean, we all seem very excited about it before. Monty's here, so.
I brought my computer this time.
Hello. Does anyone want fun color swatches before I start?
The colors
I
online.
have 4 sets, because I mean, it's so many. Well,
I like the one with the fish.
that's my favorite too. My favorite's the birds. Thank you. Okay.
So I saw in there that you had the insurance. You said if you, and we said we were gonna talk about that here in committee per.
Yeah. So to
Not
start
being-
with that, because I talked to other artists and they said that the only time they've had insurance is when scaffolding is involved and people are on a level standing above 6 feet. Like other artists, that's what they've said. Because that's where the risk comes in, is when people are standing on scaffolding, where obviously I'm going to be doing the opposite of that. I'm going to be even closer to the ground. So that's what I've heard from other people about insurance, because I would also be like, I'm a sole proprietor. I don't know. The terms are all new to me. But rather than an LLC, because an LLC would have insurance, but as a sole proprietor, I don't need to unless there's substantial risk. But anyway, is it up? Oh, yeah. So here we go. Part 2, Alley B mural proposals. So the colors, as you guys have, this would be the potential color palette. So yeah, they're bright, bold, and like deep in color to also promote longevity. So although, you know, if I did all pastel colors, it might aesthetically look a little better when I first paint it. We're working for longevity here, so getting the deep, bold colors is what promotes longevity, even if nice pastels might look better in the moment. So just balancing aesthetics and what we're working with. So Alley B in second. So this is the
proposed idea. So this one would, I'd actually paint last because the colors I could possibly change around rather than having, if I have more orange left over rather than having, but I mean, these were the colors it would be, but I'd paint more yellow flowers if I had more yellow paint left over, where the other ones, the colors are more set in stone of what they need to be. But I just put them in order of like second, third, and fourth alley. So, yes. Oh, and then I also put approximates of like what I was guessing. The G stands for gallon. So also keep in mind, doing like second coats over things. So like, the yellow, the bright yellow, I approximated that I'd have to do like a thicker coat and the white. But for this, the white is just around the eyes. So yes, that's this one. And then this is B in third. Yeah, some birds going on. And yes. And then B in fourth. So I could either do like with the water, without the water. Got some fish going on. And so then this was the paint, and specifically for exteriors and long lasting. And then I totaled up the amount. And so around 22 gallons, that price, that was like the approximate. So this is approximate cost just because I guess it's easier to wrap your head around it this way rather than looking at well, at least for me, than looking at a list of all the things. So the paint for all 3 murals, 1,500 supplies for all 3 murals. Supplies looks like brushes, paint pails, soap to clean the brushes. And then also I have some artists once they say like pour Dawn on the actual street, like to try to get some of the oil out because I guess oil seeks into the street. Yeah, and then so like the design creative fee of me like designing the murals and all this is $200 per mural, and then the labor of me painting it is $300 per mural. If you wanted me to get the professional liability insurance, I will. So, but like the artist ones I talked to said it's not needed unless I use scaffolding. So then just like the total amounts, and then the invoice has all the different amounts in here. So by color, so it's like the pink, the deep orange, the lighter orange, the yellow, the green, the light blue, the dark blue. Nocturnal green is actually the black. Petal smoke is the white. Chocolate cherry is the brown. And then the paint trays, paint liners, brushes, and then the fees. And then this is the sales tax only applied to everything but the labor and creative. And then the total amount of the invoice would be $3,239.69. How I accept payment, credit card or debit card through the invoice. I don't actually know, like automatic clear. I guess it's just a direct payment, or my legal/government name is different. So you'd have to ask me if that's what you guys want to do also. So yes, what questions do you have?
I have a question.
Yeah.
With the paint, if you buying 22 gallons of paint might lend you a discount or no?
I don't think so. I was just gonna go through Lowe's. I don't know if they have any, like, I don't know. I don't want to like bank on like a promotion of like, oh, you get a discount if you do so many things of paint, just because I don't know of any necessarily.
I have a question.
Yes.
Kind of along those lines, I wonder if it would be cheaper if the city bought it.
And are they tax exempt?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah. If you guys want to buy it, shoot.
So she said, would it be cheaper
Right, if we
if the
bought it?
city? And I said, yeah, and we're tax exempt with
Yeah.
a question mark after.
I mean, go
He
ahead.
said yes.
Okay.
Then the other thing I was gonna say is the insurance, if she doesn't, like, can we block off the street so that she's like safe? Like, not block it off, but like put
Yeah, block it off.
some cones up or something.
Yeah, that way they can
That
be
was
safe.
too.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. One is, Mr. Mosby, would we be able to run the street sweeper through there before she did that? And then maybe that would help clean up the leaves, help clean up any gravel and save you time from
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice.
cleaning that
Yeah.
up.
I wish I had my own street sweeper.
We do too.
Yeah.
And then my next idea, how do you feel about a splash pad? Because that's going to get some fresh blacktop also.
Oh, yeah, like doing that there. Yeah, because I think Annalise, that's her name, right?
Yep.
Said something to me about how that's going to be themed like water or something. Like, and she talked about painting up there. But at the moment, that's First Alley, and I think it's just First
Yeah, I'm not
Alley.
talking about now. That's like
But
a
yeah, in the
down
future,
road
yeah.
kinda
And then
thing.
I was also talking about like that could be like a community themed one or community event where like we bring more people out and it's like a bigger one. But yeah, once if that gets freshly paved, because right now it's dirt and gravel. And I actually sent Annalise like a
Yep.
video of like, so if anyone wants to see a video of me picking up the dirt and gravel, so yeah. But yes, yeah, for the future, definitely.
So we all seem to think this is a wonderful idea, right?
It's a really small investment for the
Yes.
longevity of this.
Yes. Yeah.
So what do we need to do?
So yeah, if you
Mr.
guys want to
Mosby,
buy
Madam
paint,
Mayor,
be my guest.
Chief Strand, what do we need?
what do you need from us?
I mean, honestly, the dollar amount, as I had mentioned to you earlier, is under the threshold, so that's something that we can do. I think the biggest thing would just be basically kind of a more formal endorsement, if you will, of painting on public streets. I think that would be appropriate, given, what she's asking.
So they mean they're not gonna arrest you if you.
Yeah. Glad the police chief is here.
Now I wanna do it.
You can come do chalk with me and the kids if you
Yeah.
want.
If you're super eager, the weekend of November 5th in the city of Covington, they're doing a community painting event
Well, there you
that
go.
I'm involved in as well.
Good
Look
for you.
up Covington street murals. You might find it.
Okay, so what do you need from us? Formal, something?
Yeah, I was saying that if there's like a resolution from council that's saying that you endorse this, and then we can take care of the rest.
So we need a resolution. We don't need a resolution though, do we? We can just say, we like this idea, it's a great idea.
Well, it would either be, so to be more specific, it could be a motion, you're right. That
So,
would be simpler.
yeah, less bureaucracy.
Okay, but at least a motion.
Okay, we can do that. Okay.
On council floor.
I
Okay.
have do I remember somebody saying that we have, there's a law in the books prohibiting painting? Did I dream that up?
You did. I don't remember that.
Okay,
I don't remember that.
okay. Act
we
like I
wanna-
didn't say it.
Just in case, do we want to like ask Bill to look into that or?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
You got anything?
I don't remember anything like that on the books. My only 2 cents was that I would definitely fill out, when you start doing that, I would definitely fill out the permit to block off that street, just so that because B Alley that you're talking about there is very frequently used and traveled by the trucks for scallies. And so factoring that in, I think it would be best to protect everybody doing that, to just go ahead and have that permit done for that, and blocking off the alley, or just like you would blocking off of a street.
Would Scallies need to be notified a week or two ahead, or no?
The permit would notify themselves.
The permit would
Oh,
notify
okay.
them. I guess I'm trying to think ahead and saying, I think being good stewards, that they're a good business that's been in town. Maybe just notify them ahead of time so that they know about it. I think they'd be supportive of the project. I don't
it's this
remember if they
one.
have any, I don't remember if they have any of the poles, because there's some pretty big tractor trailers that are backing up into there. So that would be the only thing, is to make sure that they can still see and differentiate the pavement from the poles and doing that. I like the idea. I think it's gonna be wonderful. I just caution those two things because, I don't want Scallies to feel slighted in that they've been in good business for a long time.
Okay, no worries. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Looks like we're on the right track there, and we will,
Nice. I'm glad.
yes, so we'll
You got 2 votes for water.
make that happen for you.
Thank you.
I like the water.
Old business is the same, old business as always. We did mention the Galbraith Road Center Lane to the chief there, Prospect Place. Speed humps. Any new business from anyone?
I have some,
I'm sorry,
I do.
you have new
I
business?
mentioned it in a council meeting before. The school district will be purchasing those signs for the streets to calm down the traffic in their areas. We actually took a ride out one day last week. The 2 will be at the top of Grace. The other, they are willing to purchase a speed hump. So, in order to place 2 on Bising. So the one that we have there, and they're gonna add another one.
You said on Bising?
We rode around, not sure where, the chief's sitting here and he's looking at me, but we talked about it a little bit on, Savannah and DeArmond. So I think it sort of slipped by the way because they did put a school back in that building on Goodman. And so now, last week, I had a conversation with Braden, and the crew is gonna go out because we have to have some crosswalks. So they're gonna paint crosswalks there. And Braden was gonna look to see if we still had any, school information, but I did talk to Mr. Blaylock and told him that we do need something around there so that people will know that it is a school in there again.
Okay.
So, we talked about Braden, I mentioned the stop sign. He's gonna see if he can get a new one, cause one is faded out. So I said all that to say crosswalks will be going in around the, board building over on Goodman because there aren't any. We discussed, something needs to happen at that Goodman, not at the Goodman, at the DeArmond Savannah, because they're, you see kids and the traffic has no, so I don't know if a speed hump there is, we are gonna put a bollard, one of those signs where the splash park is going, right at the top of the street. So once it's there, people will know that, and the school district is paying for all of those signs, so.
Wonderful.
What school is in the Goodman building now?
It's Trojan Way Learning Center.
What students, I mean?
It's a extension of North College Hill.
It's
Yeah.
alternative learning for kids who
Yeah.
don't always work best in gen ed classrooms.
And other things. So it's like in school suspension, kids go there as well. So if you instead of being suspended out of school, you go there for however long you're assigned there. So, and the virtual is run out of there as well.
Okay, any other new business?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so, taking that into consideration, I apologize, we're ending so late, and we will adjourn this meeting. It is 8:50 PM.
Madam Chair, did you
Yes.
do the legislation?
I'm sorry?
Did you discuss the legislation that we had talked about earlier tonight?
Yes,
Okay.
in rules, we
Oh, okay.
discussed it in rules and public policy. Yep.
Thank you very much.